crap, my heart is racing and won't stop. What do I do? Alrighty, so a very interesting thing happened while I was on vacation. And this person was not my patient, but just for completeness sake, I'm going to change some of the details to protect that person's privacy in case they're listening. But that person was awesome, super, super nice. Anyway, so I love playing beach volleyball to a point. Beach volleyball is really hard, y'all, because the ground moves. And so you have to like readjust your body to accommodate moving sand, and you don't move as fast. And yeah, so anyway, so I played beach volleyball, and while I was playing, one of the players, we were hitting the ball around. One of the players was like, "Ooh, let me stop," and they stopped, and um, it looked like they were having difficulty catching their breath, and their heart started. I was like, "Oh, well, what's going on?" And they said, "Oh, I'm feeling palpitations." And palpitations is a specific term. It's a specific medical term, which means that you can feel your heartbeat. So most of y'all, if you're listening or you're watching this, if you're just sitting down and not doing anything, you can't feel your heartbeat. Like even if you tried. Now you can feel your pulse, which is a extension of your heartbeat, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that you're not touching your neck or you're not touching your wrist. You're just sitting there. You probably can't feel your heartbeat, and that's good. If you can feel your heartbeat, especially if it's beating really fast, that is what we call a heart palpitation. And here's my asterisk. I'm not a cardiologist. I am a psychiatrist. I know the basics of cardiology because I passed it for medical school. If you don't like what I'm saying, if you're a cardiologist or whatever, again, go talk to your cardiologist. This is for kind of general layman, lay people terms. Okay, so back to palpitations. And so I was like, well, most times they go away without any intervention, but if you just take a deep breath and we'll sit and relax and quit running around in 80-degree heat and trying to pass the ball around. And so while that was going on, the person said, "Well, this has happened before, and it can sometimes get up to 200 beats a minute, which is fast, y'all. Like that's like super fast. Now, for like itty bitties who were just born, 200 is not fast. So if you said, 'Oh yeah, they were just born and their heart rate is 100 beats, 180 beats a minute,' I go, 'Okay, that sounds about normal.' But for a full-grown person, not so much. And so depending on what's causing it. So we're on the beach. I don't know this person's medical history. I know nothing about them, right? And so I get to run through some of the basic stuff. Could it be a panic attack? Because from my world, panic attacks are pretty common because that's what psychiatrists see, right? And your heart can race at a very, very high rate. Could it be cocaine use? Now, again, most people aren't using cocaine while they're out playing beach volleyball, but cocaine and other stimulants like caffeine and other drugs in that category can make your heart rate go really, really, really fast. Or could it be more of a medical thing? So a pre-existing heart condition where your something called SVT, like supraventricular tachycardia, which is where there are nerves in your heart that regulate how your muscles contract, right? So have you ever heard of a pacemaker? Well, that's part of that nervous system in your heart that can tell your muscles in your heart to contract. And sometimes they just go on a run, so your heart starts beating really fast, and we call that SVT. Or any other electrical thing. There's other causes of electrical discharges in the heart. And so, of course, we're on the beach. I don't know anything about this person. I'm just doing my best guess. The person then said, "Well, this has happened a few times in my life, and one thing that can be really helpful," and again, he's not talking, in this particular way because it was kind of more stressful than this, but would be vomiting, because vomiting sometimes will make the palpitations go away. And I was like, "Yep, totally makes sense," because you have something called a vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is one of your cranial nerves related directly to your brain. And not that I ever want anybody to puke, because puking is awful and I hate it. It's like the worst thing in the world from my perspective. I'm sure GI doctors feel otherwise. But if you are vomiting, that decreases your heart rate. And so by inducing vomiting or just triggering your gag reflex, sometimes that can make those kind of palpitations go away for this person. I was like, oh, yeah, well, I mean, if that works for you, ain't no shame. Everybody was given space. Another way of doing it is to trigger other cranial nerves, other major nerve networks from your brain, including like putting a cold rag or putting your face in cold water sends a stimulus to you, your brain through some major nerve systems, and sometimes that can help. It just all kind of depends because it triggers again parts of your vagus nerve and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, it was a very interesting thing. Eventually, it just stopped and we moved on with the rest of the evening. But I just say that because it was fun. After it was all over, I was given my janky psychiatry version of this cardiology talk to everybody. And it was a really interesting phenomenon. Everybody looked at me and they were listening. They were like, oh, okay, okay, okay. And then someone literally said, you should do videos on this. And I was like, oh, funny that you mention it. Um, and I said, well, I hope that was helpful. And they said, well, yeah, because there's so much information on the internet and we don't know where to look. And so, like, I've looked up things in the past and it's like, oh, you have heart palpitations, you have cancer, you're going to die. And I'm like, yeah, that's not common. And they were like, yeah, but you wouldn't know that from reading the internet. And I was like, oh, this is yet one more example of how we're like failing humanity by letting so much bad information be out there, or we're not producing good, accessible information. So I'm going to tell y'all one more time that please follow reputable people. There are cardiologists out there on TikTok. There are psychiatrists and neurologists and all sorts of people. And so find those folks, bookmark them. Hopefully, I'm amongst the psychiatry folks because I try to be helpful. But it's really important to find good information so that if you ever have a run of palpitations on a beach while you're running around, hopefully you can listen and not freak out and think that you're gonna die. Okay. Now, with that said, again, caveat: if you can't breathe, if you're losing sensation, if you're passing out, all that kind of stuff, call 911 because they need to get you hooked up to a monitor and get you taken care of. So that's the worst case scenario. But if the palpitations pass, then there you go. Hopefully that was helpful.